Can you believe this? Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State head coach, joins us. Can you believe that, first off, we're sitting here in late afternoon, shirt sleeve weather. You got BYU coming into town for what is a pivotal Big 12 championship type game. You got the playoffs that people are whispering about. And a couple of years ago, you take over the job and people are like, man, how long is it going to be before we hear about Arizona State again? So you're in the weeds, you're in the bunker right now, but also you can take a breath for a second and say, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, quick second, very quick second, because we have one of the biggest games, in the country. It's the most expensive ticket in the country right now by 3x. I mean, it's $300 to enter our stadium at any seat right now. So this place is fired up for Saturday.
I grew up in the South. I always looked at Arizona State. It's a long way away. I didn't really know where Arizona was on the map, but I always, when I learned a little geography, it's like this place looks like it's got a really big stadium. Weather looks great, confirmed, by the way. A lot of talent, a lot of high school talent in Arizona. I know that because other schools go into Arizona and they're taking kids out to go play elsewhere. Man, what if someone gets it figured out there? And so I've watched it over the years, and now I'm in this business and I know a lot more intimate details. But when you look at the profile of where you guys are, where you guys could be, you know it better than anyone. Like, what can Arizona State be?
Arizona State can be as good as any school in the country. It really can. It's a growing city, so we can continue to grow with it, right? It's still in a college town. The university is a $4.5 billion enterprise. It's not just a university. People just think we're Arizona State University. We're a $4.5 billion enterprise. We're way bigger. Our reach in the real world is way bigger than anybody could imagine for recruits when they actually graduate and get into the real world. And this place, this valley, there was a time, I'm born and raised here. There was a time that it was the Phoenix Suns and it was the Arizona State Sun Devils. And that was it. And that was what you did. On Saturday, you went to Sun Devil games. Throughout the week, you went to Suns games. And you tailgated, and it was everything. And then the city grew. And we became one of the largest cities in the country. And we got pro sports, which is awesome, which is great. But that root of Sun Devil faithful are here. They just want a winner. I mean, this is paradise out here. Winners live here. They retire, they're successful in life, and they move here.
Yeah.
It's paradise. They want a winner. We're winning. We're sold out. And it's going to be one of the best environments in college football. So where can this place be? As good as any place in the country. You just got to get good talent. There's got to be people who say, we want to stay here. Our kids got to say, we want to stay here and do something special here.
When you guys came out of spring ball, as good a grasp as you can have on your team coming out of spring, what did you think you guys were capable of, and then how has it sort of evolved? Like, how much have you learned about this group that you probably couldn't have even known coming out of spring?
Yeah, I felt like, man, we got talent. Like, we're not bad. Like, we have the talent to compete. It was, how are our guys going to handle close games? Are we people that the close game, we smile, we look at each other, you ready to go win the game? Like, you ready to go win this thing? Or are we the type of people who are like, make sure we communicate? No. And the coolest thing is when I heard Sam Leavitt, who's a freshman, right, who's leading our team, one of the top quarterbacks in college football, who wants to be here, to tell JT, our wideout, before our last drive in a game, he goes, you ready to go win this thing? Okay. That's when I realized how good we could be. In the spring, I didn't know we had that kind of dog in us.
Yeah.
I learned that in the season.
Well, what's wild is, so I take myself back to Nashville, sitting in our studio in the spring, and I see a headline, and all the preview magazines have a guy listed as your starter, and then I see, breaking news, he's not going to be there anymore, he's entering the portal. And a lot of people freaked out. And then the closer you got to the program, the less freak out you felt. And that's not to speak ill of anyone, but it is to speak pretty highly of like the internal confidence you guys had. I don't think most other people, including maybe even me, I don't think a lot of people knew maybe what Sam Leavitt was doing, even in the spring here. And now come into the season, and I think he's just now popping on a lot of people's radars because they've been paying attention to like a few programs all year and a few quarterback names all year. And this dude's got a shot, probably as good a shot as he's had on a national stage this year to do something big this Saturday. That may be when a lot of people see him for the first time. What have you seen from him all year, though? Like, what have you seen that gave you confidence coming out of spring even that we'll be all right?
The competitive nature, like the care level, reminds me of the guys I've coached like Bo Nix and Jordan Travis, and it's just there's an it.
Yeah.
You know when you talk to somebody and you're like, that dude's got it.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, well, he's got it. He can lead. He wants it. He's intelligent. All right, then you watch him in spring ball and you see some freak plays he makes. You're like, okay, this kid cares. He's got it. He's got this thing about him. And then he has all these tools to make it. If we can truly develop this dude, he's got all the stuff you can't coach. So now let's go coach him. And I think was the exciting part in spring was when you look into his eyes, you're like, he's got it. And you can't coach that. And I've coached guys who are like that. They're playing on Sundays right now. One of them just won, I think, every award known to man last week for the Broncos and Bo Nix. And he's got it here. Sam has it.
When you are putting together a playbook, when you're putting together an offensive game plan, maybe even during spring, like when you're trying to filter out what you probably won't use this season and package up what you will use to fit your personnel, how often do you look around and say, you know, it's players over plays, like we can draw it up on a board, but at the end of the day, we got to give these guys room to actually do what they do. It may not look pretty on a grease board, but that's actually how we're going to win games this fall.
No question. I mean, I'm a high school coach, going way back to my root. I coached 7 years of high school out here. I had no connection to college football. And what I learned, I coached 8th graders at a park, literally 10 minutes from here, where the lights didn't turn on, and I'd have to turn my truck on to show lights at the street.
Remember the Titans vibe, yeah.
Literally,
yeah.
That was it. We had our coaches, we'd put the lights on. And I say all that because at those levels, you get what you get, and you find a way to get your best players the ball over and over again. You put your best player at quarterback, you snap it to him, you run right, you run left, right? You maybe put him at wideout, throw him a screen. But it's that mindset now with the knowledge of a guy like Coach Arroyo, who's more NFL driven than even I have in my background, and you say, okay, how do we just get our best players the ball as much as possible? And that's why Jordan Tyson, went off last week, almost 200 yards of offense receiving. That's why Cam Scatterbo, I don't know if he is still, but was leading the country in yards per scrimmage. And it's because at the end of the day, we're going to get our best players the ball. And that's our job as coaches, to get our best players the ball. And I think we do that as good as anybody in the country.
When you guys last week were at Kansas State, I'm at the Georgia-Tennessee game, so I can't watch it live. And I think you guys got a dogfight on your hands. You got an outside shot to go in there and win. And I look at my phone and it's 21-0. And then you're up like 20, you ended up winning 24-14. But I mean, they're trying to play catch up. Like they're trying to get back in the game. Everybody, when they have like a big season, you're in the middle of one right now, they always have that moment. Like if there's ever a documentary made or you're speaking to a quarterback club at the end of the year, you always go back to these few moments as saying, hey, this was the turning point. That's when I knew. When you're in that moment, it's heat of battle. Yeah. But like when you're looking and you're saying, wow, we're in this situation right now, like what does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, it was, just like, holy cow. Like there's not a word or an expression for it. Like you're obviously, it's second quarter. Like the game's not even close to over, right? But it's like, we got a chance. We got a chance. And I'll say this, like that moment that you're talking about after the UCF game 2 weeks prior where we played horrible, we found a way to win on special teams, pick six, special teams touchdown, we just found a way to win. And then 35 guys went and hung out together after the game. I was like, we got a chance. Like, we just won a game we shouldn't, in a way we shouldn't, and then 35 kids chose to hang out together at night. And I know that's such a small thing, a little thing, but that tells you the connection of the team is beyond the game. And when your connection is beyond the game, anything can happen. And then the next week, we go out and play our best football game. I don't think that's coincidence. I think that's connection and relationship that's real, that's not fake, that's not just put on a board and said from a coach. It's the players genuinely like and care about each other.
Now, if you Google your name, I would imagine something's going to pop up that talks about you being one of the youngest head coaches in college football. Do you feel young?
No.
You don't feel young at all?
I really don't. I've been coaching since I was 17, right? So this is actually my 17th year coaching, which isn't even close to some other guys. But you don't say somebody it's year 17, you're like, oh, that's young, if you actually look at that body of work. I was too unathletic to play, and my high school head coach was like, hey, let's just throw that in the bag. Let's just start coaching, man. Go coach the freshman team. And then 8th graders out here, 15 minutes from here, because I'm born and raised here. So was my wife. My wife danced here. So for me, it was like, yeah, I'm young. I get it. Everybody watching me run thinks I'm old. I'm unathletic. I can't even hoop anymore because I've had too many knee surgeries. So I'm young at heart. I'll say that.
That's, in a low-key way, or maybe you're just real about it. That's a blessing, though. What if you were on the borderline? What if you could kind of play? What if you would have tried to dabble and you wouldn't have gotten into coaching until like 28 years old? So in a way, your DNA became a blessing, did it not?
100%. I mean, I tore my ACL going into my senior year of high school, tried to play without my ACL. I was already 5'9", unathletic, and ran a 4.8. So now I'm 5'9", unathletic, and run a 5 flat. And my coach is like, "You're done, son. If you want to coach, let's start you." And that coach today is our special teams coordinator right now, Charlie Regal.
It's like when you think about where you go, when you think about the stops you've made,
yeah.
you've been everywhere from Auburn to Oregon to Memphis to Florida State. Now you're here. How often during a typical week or a month or a season do you find yourself just drawn on random things that you experienced here, random things that this guy did there, and it just fires like a memory would for a normal person?
Constantly. I mean, every single situation that happens, I mean, head coaches, your job is to put out fires, manage people, right? And every single day it's like, this happened here, he did this. Like our leadership council method is from Gus Malzahn. The way we practice, pre-practice is from Dan Lanning. The periods 3 through 8 are from Mike Norvell. Period 2 is from Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban. Like, it's constantly pulling from, the Rolodex of things that I've learned throughout working with really, really successful people.
So then the other part of that is you've got things that you feel like are in your wheelhouse, and then you may have things that, might as well be Portuguese to you. So a lot of head coaches don't have a background in sports science, but yet you're responsible with hiring people who are tasked with carrying that out for you. Strength and conditioning, how you recover, like the analytical side, all these things. How do you figure, I know it's an ongoing process, but like how do you figure out, not only here's how I actually want that done, but now I got to interview people for those jobs. And those people know more about this job than I do, but like ultimately I'm going to have to answer for the results and whether we win or lose.
That's the hardest part. Hardest part is when you don't know the nuances of what you're hiring. And I was told this from a guy named Gus Esposito, who's been a very successful businessman. He goes, "You don't need to know everything to know people." He said, when you're hiring, you're not hiring somebody how intelligent they are, how smart they are. If they pass certain criteria to get in your room, they should have some knowledge on the subject and have the intelligence. You're hiring the person to fit your culture and your program more than you're hiring what they can actually produce. Because if they don't fit your culture and your program, it doesn't matter what they know. So in those settings, it was always about, is this person, our 3 pillars are be a good person, make good decisions, have more fun working harder than anybody in the country. When I get on and I meet you, do I feel like you're a good person, right? Do I feel like you're somebody who's going to make good decisions, right? Are you dressed? How are you dressed for this interview? Does it matter to you? And then are you smiling? Or is this a miserable? Because if it's miserable, you got no chance. I want people who are multipliers in our program. I don't care who you are. I want you to make the people around you better. So all of those hires were all about those 3 requirements. It wasn't as much about what they knew, because I didn't know all that.
Yeah.
I had to rely on people that interview this guy. And then once we got them in the interview, it was, do you fit what we're trying to do here? Do you fit the overall culture of the program?
When you walk through some of these buildings, it feels like very militaristic. When you walk through some other buildings, it's loose. I think if you walked through some of the more buttoned up, really, really stuffy buildings, especially the ones that are successful, then you walk through one where a lot of people feel loose, they're having a good time, people would misconstrue that as weakness.
Yes.
How do you have that vibe, but then still go toe-to-toe and even beat the folks who really look buttoned up and they're all marching in a line, and it's, like I said, kind of militaristic? It's obvious that that's not the end-all be-all, because if it was, then your way couldn't win.
I think you have to be yourself. I think kids want to follow people and be in a program that's genuine. So if my personality was that,
yeah,
then I better recruit to that. I better sign guys that want that, right? And build a program like that. I am not like that. If I walked around like that, the guys would laugh at me because that's not me, right? I'm the guy who's going to tap you on the shoulder and then go the same way and say, gotcha, because you're going to look over the other shoulder, right? I'm the guy who's going to crack a joke. And at the same time, you better be 5 minutes early. That's just the minimum standard. Like, it's not hard to be early. It's not hard to do what you're supposed to do. That's why we're going to have more fun working harder than anyone in the country. And when it comes to that, it's funny. We had a kid who transferred here who we had a recruit walking around, and I was telling him, have more fun working harder. That's one of our pillars. And he goes, hey, don't forget about that working harder part. That real out here. We work twice as hard as my last school. And I think it's just, you have to be genuine to who you are and then recruit to your culture. You can't just say this guy's talented, we're gonna force this guy into what we do. You've got to recruit to your personality. You've got to recruit to the people that you like, that you genuinely like. We don't sign guys I don't like. Like, I better walk into the building, see 120 kids that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Because I'm around them all the time. They're family. They're literally around me just as much as my family.
So if I put a normal person in your position, like that, you get them to that point, but then I swap you out for a normal person, I think they'd get overwhelmed by the external stuff that comes along with winning. When you start winning, a lot more people pay attention to you. You sell a lot more tickets. You get a lot more requests. I come here and ask you, hey, before your date tonight with your wife, can you sit down with me for about 20 or 30 minutes? I think a normal person would focus on everything but the task at hand. You're not ignoring any of the external, but like, how big a challenge has it been, maybe not for you, but you keeping your building focused on the task at hand, or is it an afterthought, everyone's focused on what they need to?
I think it is a challenge. You know, when you're not used to success, right, any change is difficult. So when you go from, okay, we're 3-9, we're one of the worst programs in college football. Let's call a spade a spade. Like, how are they ever going to win? They have NCAA sanctions. They can't go to a bowl game last year. All this negative, this dark cloud of they can never recover. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Boom. To say that that's not hard for your guys is real. Now the challenge is, hopefully you've poured enough into, do you really care what other people think? Because if you constantly care what other people think, whether it's football or life, you're never going to be happy. You're going to have a great day, then you're going to have a bad day, then you're going to have a great hour and a miserable hour. You better learn to accept who you are, embrace who you are, love who you are, and just double down on you. And whoever likes you, and whoever doesn't, and you walk around as the happiest person on earth, and those people who are making other people trying to twist and turn into what other people want, they're gonna be miserable. And you're gonna walk around with half the people loving you, half the people hating you, and you still don't care. And I think that's hopefully the vision that we've set for these guys is, who cares? Just go be the best version of us and repeat.
Kenny Dillingham, man, we appreciate it.
Thank you
so much.
I appreciate it.